My name is Frankency Williams. I'm 29 years old. I'm an ICU nurse at St. Catherine Medical Center in Jacksonville, Florida. September 28th, 2025, 2:13 a.m. My grandmother, Dorothy, 78 years old, called me. The storm hit. Flash flooding, water rising, waist deep. She was trapped. I called my father. Grandma's drowning. I need help. He said, "We're not throwing away $3,800 because your grandmother panicked in a storm. Handle it." I got her out myself, drove her to my own hospital. Aspiration pneumonia, hypothermia, ICU. 1 week later, a nurse asked me, "Who authorized the code status change to DNR?" I'm Dorothy's designated healthcare surrogate, the only one with legal authority. I never authorized anything. That was the moment I realized my own family had tried to finish what the flood started, and I had receipts for everything. If you're watching, hit subscribe and tell me where you're tuning in from. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I read every single one before I tell you what happened in that hospital. You need to understand something about my family. I was 12 years old. Spring 2008. My school was doing a Midsummer Night's Dream. I had 2 lines, peas blossom. Not a big part, but I'd practiced for weeks. The night of the performance, I stood backstage looking through the curtain, searching the audience for my parents. They weren't there. Jessica had a volleyball tournament, regionals, 3 hours away in Orlando. Important for her future, my mother said. They drove down that morning, but Grandma Dorothy was there, front row, blue dress. She was the only one who came. Afterward, she took me for ice cream at Dairy Queen. I asked her, "Do they love me as much as Jessica?" She held my hand across the table. "Your parents love you just as much, honey. Jessica just needs more right now. She's doing big things." What am I doing? Dorothy squeezed my hand. "You're here with me. That's big, too." I was 29 when the flood hit, 17 years later, and I was still the only one who showed up. If your family ever chose money over you, comment your city right now. You're not alone. Let me take you back to September 27th, 2025. The night before, everything changed. I'd finished my 12-hour ICU shift at 6:30 p.m. Drove home to my apartment on Hendricks Avenue. The weather radar was turning red. Tropical Storm Raphael. Flash flood warnings went out at 11 p.m. for areas near the St. Johns River. I texted Dorothy. "Grandma, is your back door sealed? Remember, Dad was supposed to fix the weather stripping?" She replied, "Haven't seen your daddy in 3 weeks, honey. Door's fine. Don't worry." I went to bed at midnight. Phone on loud. I always do when there's a storm and Dorothy's alone. The call came at 2:13 a.m. Her voice was shaking. Water rushing in the background. "Frankency, baby, the water. It's coming through the door. It's up to my knees. I can't get the back door open." I grabbed my keys. "I'm coming. Stay on the phone." I could hear her breathing fast and panicked. I ran to my car in my pajamas, threw on a rain jacket. "Grandma, move to this kitchen counter. Hold on to something. It's cold. It's so cold." "I know. I'm driving. I'm coming." I called my father while I was on Highway 90. 2:15 a.m. Daniel Williams, construction foreman, my dad. He picked up after 4 rings. Highway noise in the background. My mother, Patricia's voice muffled. "Dad, Grandma's trapped. Floodwaters in the house. I need help. I can't carry her alone through moving water." Frankency, we're on I-95 South, 4 hours from Jacksonville. My stomach dropped. "Turn around. This is an emergency." Silence on the line. Then my mother's voice in the background. "We already paid. It's non-refundable." Daniel came back. "Your sister Jessica, her Executive Women's Leadership Summit at Amelia Island. The package was $2,400 for her, $1,450 for us to attend the networking dinner. Total $38.50. We signed the waiver in July. No refunds after September 1st. Dad, Grandma is drowning." What about emergency exceptions? Family emergency. We already asked when we paid the deposit. There's no clause. And if we no-show, it reflects badly on Jessica. This summit is important for her pharmaceutical sales career. I felt ice in my chest. So, you're staying at the resort. Can you handle it? You're a nurse. You know emergency protocols will come tomorrow when it ends. She could be dead tomorrow. Frankency, your sister worked hard. I hung up. 2:17 a.m. I understood something I'd been avoiding my whole life. I was the only one who would turn the car around. I arrived at Dorothy's house at 2:28 a.m. Water in the street, ankle deep. The front door was jammed. I went through the side gate. The backyard was waist deep, water still rising. I found Dorothy clinging to the kitchen counter, shaking violently, lips blue, hypothermic. I called you first, she whispered. I knew you'd come. Where's your daddy? I lied to her. He's coming. Let's get you out. I lifted her. Dorothy weighed 96 pounds. I'm used to moving patients. ICU nurses deadlift bodies every shift, but this was different. The water helped. Waist deep means buoyancy. I got my arm under her shoulders, kept her head above water, half walked, half floated her to the car. She was lighter than I remembered. Fragile bird bones. As we moved through the water, she said, Daniel promised to fix that door last month. He never came. I didn't answer. I got her to my car, wrapped her in the emergency blanket I keep in the trunk. She drifted in and out during the 12-minute drive to St. Catharines. At one point, she said, Jessica sent me photos from the resort. It looks so beautiful. She deserves nice things. She works so hard. I kept my eyes on the road, hands tight on the wheel. You deserve someone who shows up, Grandma. Her breathing changed. Shallow, raspy. The sound ICU nurses know means aspiration. I drove faster. If she died before I got there, they'd say it was the flood. No one would know they chose $3,850 over her life. I pulled into St. Catharines Emergency Department at 2:46 a.m. The triage nurse took vitals immediately. Blood pressure 88/52. Temperature 94.3 degrees. Oxygen saturation 84% on room air. How long was she in the water? At least 30 minutes, maybe longer before she called. Dr. Nathan Cross, the ED attending, examined her, listened to her lungs, looked at me. Aspiration pneumonia. We need to intubate. You work here? He asked. I see you. 3rd floor. He was gentle. Then you know we've got her. Step outside while we intubate. I stood in the family waiting area. Through the window, I watched them work. Laryngoscope, endotracheal tube, vent settings, sedation drip, every protocol I knew by heart. But this time it was my grandmother on that table. I texted Daniel. Grandma intubated. St. Catharines, ICU critical. Read receipt. 3:02 a.m. No reply. 4:18 a.m. Dorothy was transferred to ICU bed 12. Dr. Avery Collins, the attending intensivist, gave me the report. Aspiration pneumonia from dirty floodwater, acute respiratory distress syndrome, hypothermia, high mortality risk in elderly patients. The assigned nurse was Bethany Cole. I'd worked with her before, opposite shifts, but we knew each other. Dr. Collins asked, Are you next of kin granddaughter? And I'm her designated healthcare surrogate. I pulled the paper from my wallet. I'd been carrying it since March 14, 2022. Folded, notarized by Gerald Pute, attorney at law. I unfolded it, showed them designation of healthcare surrogate per Florida Statute 765.20. 202 authority effective upon determination of incapacity with authorization to consult on medical decisions and access all medical records. Bethany documented it in the chart. I watched her type surrogate Frankency Williams' sole authority. She asked other family coming. I felt hollow. They're 4 hours away at a resort. At 7:08 a.m., I signed the hospital's formal surrogate acknowledgement. Contact number 904555136. Primary contact. Daniel and Patricia listed as secondary notification only. I looked at Bethany. If anything changes, code status, treatment decisions, anything, you call me first, not them, me. She nodded. It's in the chart. I looked at the monitor. Vent settings, oxygen saturation, heart rate, blood pressure. I thought I saved strangers every shift. I keep people alive who I've never met, who I'll never see again. I hold hands. I titrate pressers. I run codes. That's my job. But now I had to save my own grandmother from her own blood. I left at 7:45, drove home, didn't sleep. September 29th, day 1 post-ICU admission. I visited at 3 p.m. Dorothy was still deeply sedated. No change in her condition. The ventilator breathed for her. 16 breaths per minute, mechanical, precise. I checked the visitor log at the ICU desk. St. Catherine's had installed an electronic visitor management system in 2022 after CO. Every visitor scans their ID at a kiosk, states their relationship to the patient, prints a badge with a timestamp. The system logs everything. Name, relationship, time in, time out, badge number, security footage backs it up. I looked at Dorothy's log, just my name. Badge 5 is 0315 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. No one else. At 5 p.m., Patricia texted me, "How is she?" I typed back, sedated, intubated, critical. "When are you coming?" "Summit ends tomorrow afternoon. We'll drive straight there." I stared at that text. Tomorrow afternoon, 24 more hours alone. September 30th, day 2. I came at 8 a.m. before my own shift started. Dorothy's sedation had been lightened slightly. She squeezed my hand, weak but present. She still couldn't breathe without the machine. I asked Bethany, "Anyone else visit?" She checked the electronic log. "Just you." No one else signed in. I tried to sound casual. "My parents said they'd be here today. Want me to call them?" "No, they'll come." At 2 p.m., I got a text from Jessica Williams Monroe. "My sister, 34 years old, pharmaceutical sales representative. Married, 2 kids, the golden child. Mom said grandma's stable. That's good news." I stared at the word stable. Dorothy was on a ventilator. Sedated, critical, elderly, high mortality risk. There was nothing stable about this. October 1st, day 3. I visited at 6 p.m. after my shift. Dorothy was more alert, eyes tracking. She tried to mouth words around the tube. She looked past me, searching for other faces. I saw the question in her eyes. "Where are they?" I leaned close. "They're coming, Grandma." The summit ended yesterday. Probably tired from driving. Her eyes clear, sharp, disbelieving. She squeezed my hand. 3 times it was our signal. "Since I was little, I love you." I squeezed back 4 times. "I love you more." Tears filled her eyes. I thought about that school play again. 17 years ago. Dorothy in the front row alone. "You're here with me." That's big, too. October 1st, 2025. I was 29, Dorothy was 78, and I was still here, still alone with her, still the only one who showed up. October 4th, 8:30 a.m. I called the ICU from home. I was off shift. I wanted an update. The charge nurse transferred me to Megan Hart, case manager. Her voice had an edge. "Frankency, can you come in? There's a documentation question. I don't want to do this over the phone." My stomach dropped. "Is she okay?" "Medically stable, but there's an issue with her chart." I arrived at 9:15 a.m. Megan led me to the family conference room, the small one, the one we use for bad news conversations. She had Dorothy's chart pulled up on a laptop. October 3rd, 11:52 p.m. code status was changed from full code to DNR/DNI. She turned the screen toward me. Chart note per family discussion with daughter at bedside. Patients previously expressed wishes for comfort care, only no heroic measures. Code status changed to DNR/DNI per surrogate. Dr. Trevor Walsh, ICU resident, attending Dr. Collins notified and approved via phone. I read it 3 times per surrogate. Megan looked at me. "You're listed as the designated surrogate. Did you authorize this change?" "I wasn't here, October 3rd. I didn't authorize anything." Her face changed. "Then who did?" She pulled up the visitor log. Electronic timestamped ID verified. October 3rd, 10:38 p.m. Jessica Williams Monroe. Relationship daughter. Badge 5 is 1038. Timeout. 11:56 p.m. 4 minutes after the code status was changed, I pulled out my surrogate designation. unfolded it again. March 14th, 2022. Notarized legal. This has been valid for 3 years. Jessica has no authority. None. Megan photographed it for the file. I need to escalate this to Dr. Bennett. This is an unauthorized code status change. Frankency, did your family know you were the surrogate? I thought back to 2022 family dinner. I told everyone. Jessica had shrugged. Said, that's fine. I don't want the responsibility, anyway. You're the nurse. Jessica knew. I told her in 2022. Megan's jaw tightened. Let me pull the full documentation. By 2:00 p.m. on October 4th, I had everything. The visitor log, the chart note from Dr. Trevor Walsh, first-year resident, first week on ICU service. Night shift. The timeline. October 3rd, 10:38 p.m. Jessica signed in. October 3rd, 11:30 p.m. She spoke with Dr. Walsh at bedside. October 3rd, 11:52 p.m. Code status changed to DNR/DNI. October 3rd, 11:56 p.m. Jessica signed out. Dr. Walsh's note. Spoke with patient's daughter Jessica at bedside. Family reports. Patient previously expressed wishes for comfort care only. No heroic measures. Patient currently unable to communicate due to sedation and intubation. Daughter states she is decision maker for family. Changed code status to DNR/DNI per family wishes. Dr. Collins notified and approved via phone. Daughter states she is decision maker, but I had the paper notarized legal. 3 years old Jessica had lied, sat in my car in the hospital parking lot, stared at the visitor log printout. Something was bothering me. The retreat, the Executive Women's Leadership Summit, Amelia Island Resort. I pulled it up on my phone. 3-day event, September 27th through 29th. Closing ceremony, October 2nd, 5 p.m. Jacksonville to Amelia Island, 32 minutes. Summit ended October 2nd at 5 p.m. Jessica was at the hospital October 3rd at 10:38 p.m. If the summit ended almost 30 hours earlier, why did my parents text me the morning of October 4th saying they'd just gotten back? I opened Instagram. Jessica's account public, 85,000 followers, lifestyle content, professional polish. October 2nd, 6 p.m. photo from the closing ceremony. What an incredible experience. So inspired by these powerful women. #leadership, #women in business. Location, Amelia Island Resort. October 3rd, 7:00 p.m. photo of her 2 kids. Back to reality. Summit was amazing, but nothing beats these faces. #momlife, #home again. Location, #home. Not just got home. Not finally back after a long drive. Just home. She'd been home since at least 7:00 p.m. on October 3rd. The hospital was 32 minutes from her house. She went to the ICU 3 hours later on purpose at night when I wouldn't be there. If you have elderly family, check right now who's actually listed as their healthcare surrogate. Don't wait until the ICU to find out. I found something else. Dorothy's purse. The one I'd grabbed during the rescue, still damp, sitting in my closet at home. I hadn't gone through it yet. October 5th, I open it. Wallet, Medicare card, reading glasses, Kleenex packet, and a small white card tucked in the zippered pocket. Gerald Pute, attorney at Law Estate Planning and Elder Law, November 4th, 2025, 2 p.m. On the back, Dorothy's handwriting in blue ink. Update, Will. Frankency gets condo. I sat on my bedroom floor, holding that card, for 15 minutes. The condo. Dorothy owned a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo in Atlantic Beach, Unit 3B, 350, Ocean Boulevard, Sea Breeze Condominiums, 3 blocks from the ocean. She bought it in 1988 for $92,000. Zillow's current estimate, $685,000. The condo was paid off. No mortgage, just HOA fees, $385 a month, and annual property taxes around $6,200. Dorothy also had savings $156,000 in a high-yield account at Navy Federal Credit Union. Under her current will, written in 2015, everything split 50-50 between Daniel, her son, my father, and his 2 granddaughters, me and Jessica. Jessica would get 25% of everything. 25% of 685,171,250 plus 25% of 156,000 savings 39,000. Total for Jessica under the old will, $210,250. But if Dorothy updated the will, if Frankency got the condo, Jessica would get what? Maybe half the savings, maybe less. She'd lose over $150,000. More if Dorothy was cutting her share entirely. I thought about the timing. November 4th, 2025. Attorney appointment. October 3rd, 2025. Code status changed to DNR. 1 month before Dorothy could sign that, someone tried to make sure she'd never make it to that appointment. I called Gerald Pute's office on October 7th. The receptionist answered, "Law, this is Diane Kowalski speaking." "Hi, this is Frankency Williams. I'm Dorothy Williams' granddaughter and designated health care surrogate. I have a question about my grandmother's appointment on November 4th.
Oh, yes.
I have that on the calendar. Is everything all right? She's in the hospital. I'm calling to confirm. Did anyone else from the family contact you about that appointment?"
Pause.
Let me check her call log. I waited. She came back. Yes. Jessica Monroe called on September 20th. She said she wanted to confirm the time of her mother's appointment. September 20th, 8 days before the flood. Did she say anything else? She asked what the appointment was for. I told her it was for will update. Attorney-client privilege prevents me from sharing details, but general scheduling information is fine. She thanked me and hung up. September 20th, Jessica knew 2 weeks before the storm hit. She knew Dorothy was cutting her out of the condo, but I found something worse. October 10th, I went back to Dorothy's house. The flood had receded. The house was destroyed. Ruined floors, mold growing, everything soaked. But I needed to check something. Dorothy had installed a Ring doorbell camera in 2024. Battery powered. I'd helped her set it up. The camera saved footage to the cloud for 60 days. I logged into her Ring account from my phone. I scrolled back. September 20th, 2025. 7:42 p.m. motion detected. I clicked play. Jessica's car in the driveway. Patricia's car behind it. They walked to the front door, let themselves in with a key. They had Dorothy's spare. The camera had audio. Inside, muffled but clear enough. Jessica's voice. "Mom, we need to talk about this will thing." Patricia. "Diane, just sit down." Dorothy's voice firmer than I'd heard in years. "I've made my decision. Frankency gets the condo. You two visit twice a year. Frankency is here every week. Jessica, that condo is worth almost $700,000. You're going to give it all to her?" "Dorothy, I'm not giving it to anyone. I'm deciding who gets my property when I'm gone. And I'm giving it to the person who acts like family." Patricia, Jessica, is your granddaughter, too. Dorothy, who didn't come to my hospital appointments, who didn't call on my birthday, who only shows up when she needs money. Silence. Then Jessica's voice cold. "If you do this, you're choosing her over your own blood."
Dorothy.
"Blood doesn't mean family. Jessica, showing up does." The recording ended. I saved it, downloaded it, backed it up 3 places. September 20th, 2025. Jessica and Patricia both knew Dorothy was cutting Jessica out. 8 days later, the flood hit. 7 days after that, Jessica showed up at the ICU and tried to change Dorothy's code status to DNR. This wasn't panic. This was a plan. I found one more thing. Dorothy's phone, the old one. Water damaged, but the SIM card survived. I'd backed it up to iCloud on October 8th in case Dorothy needed her contacts later. October 11th, I logged into the cloud backup. There was a text thread I'd never seen before. Between Patricia and Jessica, October 3rd, 2025, 11:38 p.m. Patricia to Jessica, "Do it tonight. If she wakes up enough to talk to a lawyer, we're done." 11:38 p.m. 14 minutes before the code status was changed. I screenshot it, emailed it to myself. Timestamp October 11th, 2025, 10:22 p.m. backed it up, printed it. 14 minutes after that text, Jessica walked into ICU bed 12 and told Drive Trevor Walsh that Dorothy had always wanted comfort care only. Comment turned around if you're the one who always shows up when your family doesn't. October 6th, 3:00 p.m. St. Catherine's ICU Family Conference Room. I requested a meeting. Jessica, Daniel, Patricia. They came. I sat across from them. I had documents spread on the table, the surrogate designation, the visitor log, the appointment card, the Ring camera transcript, the text message. Jessica sat down. Professional clothes. MedSource Pharmaceuticals badge, still clipped to her jacket. She looked tired. Frankency, Mom said you had questions. Who authorized the DNR? She blinked.
What?
October 3rd, 11:52 p.m., someone changed Grandma's code status to do not resuscitate.
Who was it?
Patricia started. We thought it was best. I'm asking Jessica. Jessica's voice was calm. Practice sales, pitch smooth. I spoke with the doctor. Grandma always said she didn't want to suffer on machines. You know that, Frankency. She told us at Christmas 2 years ago. She said if she ever got to the point where she couldn't recover, she'd want to go peacefully. I slid the surrogate designation across the table. I am her designated healthcare surrogate. March 14th, 2022. You were there when I told the family. You said you didn't want the responsibility. Jessica looked at the paper. I thought that was just for emergencies when you couldn't reach us. This was an emergency. You weren't there. Someone had to make the decision. I slid the visitor log across the table. Electronic printout, time-stamped, badge numbered. The retreat ended October 2nd at 5 p.m. You posted from home October 3rd at 7:00 p.m. The hospital is 32 minutes from your house.
You were in town the whole time.
Patricia went pale. Jessica's jaw tightened. I kept going. October 3rd, 10:38 p.m. You signed in as daughter. Badge 5 is -1038. You told Dr. Trevor Walsh, a first-year resident who didn't know any better, that you were the decision-maker. You lied. Daniel spoke for the first time. Frankency, you're blowing this out of proportion. She changed Grandma's code status to DNR so the doctors wouldn't fight as hard to save her. 4 days after you refused to turn around during the flood because you couldn't get a refund on a resort package. Patricia's voice cracked. We thought you'd understand. Sometimes letting go is kinder. Understand what? That you weren't thinking about kindness? I put the appointment card on the table. November 4th, 2:00 p.m. Gerald Pute. Attorney will update. Frankency gets condo. Jessica's face changed. I pulled out my phone, opened the Ring camera video, hit play. Their voices filled the room. That condo is worth almost $700,000. You're going to give it all to her? Blood doesn't mean family, Jessica. Showing up does. I stopped the video. September 20th, you knew. Both of you knew Grandma was cutting Jessica out of the condo. 8 days later, the flood hit. 7 days after that, Jessica showed up at the ICU and tried to make sure Grandma never made it to that appointment. Jessica stood up. You don't know what you're talking about. I pulled out the printed text message. October 3rd, 11:38 p.m. Patricia to Jessica. Do it tonight. If she wakes up enough to talk to a lawyer, we're done. I looked at my mother. 14 minutes later, Jessica changed the code status. Silence. I slid one more document across the table. Bank statements. Dorothy's Navy Federal account highlighted in yellow. For transactions 2022 to 2024. Transfer to Jessica Williams Monroe, $3,000. March 2022. Transfer to Jessica Williams Monroe, $2,500. November 2022. Transfer to Jessica Williams Monroe for $1,200. June 2023. Transfer to Jessica Williams Monroe, $2,300. January 2024. Total $12,000. Attached a voicemail transcript from Jessica. August 2024. Mom, Grandma, it's me. I know I said last time was the last time, but we're really tight this month. Brian's commission check didn't come through. Can you just one more time? I'll pay you back. I promise. She never paid it back. I looked at Jessica. You owed her $12,000. She was about to cut you out of the will. You'd lose $685,000 in real estate and probably most of the savings, too. You couldn't let her sign that will. Jessica's voice was shaking. You don't understand. I understand that you chose money over her life. October 12th, Hospital Ethics Committee, Dr. Laura Bennett, Chief Medical Officer, presided. The committee reviewed the unauthorized code status change. I sat in the conference room as Dorothy's surrogate. Dr. Bennett pulled up the documentation. Miss Williams, you were designated healthcare surrogate in March 2022, correct? Yes, ma'am. And the hospital had this on file when your grandmother was admitted September 28th.
Yes.
I provided it at 4:52 a.m. to Bethany Cole, RN. She documented it in the chart. Dr. Bennett turned to Dr. Trevor Walsh, the resident. He looked miserable. Dr. Walsh, walk me through your interaction with Jessica Monroe on October 3rd. She approached me at the nurse's station around 11:30 p.m., said she was the patient's daughter. She knew medical terminology, talked about quality of life, prolonged ventilation, patient suffering. She seemed knowledgeable. I assumed she had medical background. Did you verify her legal authority to make medical decisions?
No, ma'am.
She presented confidently and said the family had discussed this. I assumed daughter meant automatic decision-maker. Did you check the chart for a designated surrogate? He looked down.
No.
Dr. Bennett's voice was icy. The chart clearly listed Frankency Williams as sole surrogate with contact information. You failed to verify authority before entering a life or death code status change. That is a serious breach of protocol, Dr. Walsh. She looked at me. Miss Williams, this should never have happened. Your authority was documented in the medical record. Someone deliberately misrepresented themselves to our staff. She turned back to the committee. I'm reading from Florida Statute 765.202. The surrogate shall have the authority to make healthcare decisions on the principal's behalf. Any other person who claims authority to make healthcare decisions without proper legal designation may be subject to civil or criminal liability. At 4 p.m., Dorothy's code status was changed back to full code. Dr. Walsh received a formal reprimand, mandatory additional training on advanced directive verification. St. Catherine's updated its visitor management policy. Anyone claiming medical decision-making authority now had to show legal documentation before staff would discuss treatment options. Dr. Bennett said to me privately, "Your family put our resident in an impossible position. He should have verified, but they lied to him deliberately. I'm sorry we failed you." October 16th, Dorothy was extubated. The team had been weaning her sedation since October 14th. By the 15th, she was alert, following commands, squeezing hands on request. Dr. Collins made the call. She's ready to come off the vent. I wasn't there for the procedure. I was working my own shift, but Bethany texted me at 3:42 p.m. She's out breathing on her own, asking for you. I went to ICU bed 12 at 6 p.m. Dorothy was sitting up. Oxygen via nasal cannula at 2L. Her voice was horror from 18 days of intubation, but clear. You came. I sat in the chair next to her bed, took her hand. Of course, I came. She squeezed my hand. I knew you would. She looked past me at the empty doorway. Where's your father? Hasn't been here, Grandma. She nodded like she'd known all along. Jessica came once. October 3rd told the doctor something that wasn't true. She looked at me. What did she tell them? That you wanted them to let you go. Her jaw tightened. That girl never could tell the truth. I explained everything. The surrogate designation, the code status change, the visitor log, the retreat that never was, the attorney appointment, the Ring camera, the text message from Patricia, the $12,000 in loans. When I finished, Dorothy was quiet for a long time. Then she said something I'll never forget. They left you alone in that water. You were the only one who turned around. But you didn't leave.
Me. She paused.
Her eyes were wet. I signed that surrogate paper in 2022 for a reason, Frankency. I knew Jessica would only come for money. I knew your parents would pick her over me. I've known for years. But I also knew you'd show up. You always have. She squeezed my hand. When I called you that night, when the water was rising, I didn't call your father first. I called you because I knew. October 20th. Dorothy was fully alert, oriented to person, place, time, situation. The medical team documented that she had full decision-making capacity. Dr. Collins came in with the social worker. Dorothy, we need to confirm for the record. Who do you want making medical decisions if you're unable to speak for yourself? Frankency Williams? My granddaughter? Only her? Not your son, Daniel? No, not your granddaughter, Jessica. Especially not Jessica. It went in the chart. In Dorothy's own words, recorded, legal, permanent. Then Dr. Collins asked, now that you can decide for yourself, do you want to establish a DNR order? Some patients who've been through critical illness decide they don't want aggressive intervention in the future. Dorothy looked at me, then back at Dr. Collins. No full code. I want every chance to live. October 22nd, I filed a report with Florida Adult Protective Services, case number APS 2025-10-1893. The investigator assigned to the case was Linda Brennan. She interviewed me October 25th in a conference room at the APS District 4 office. I brought everything. The surrogate designation, the visitor log, the chart documentation, the Ring camera video file, the text message screenshot, the attorney appointment card, the September 20th phone call log from Gerald Pute's receptionist, the bank statements showing $12,000 in unpaid loans. Linda reviewed every document, took photographs, recorded my statement. When I finished, she looked at me. Ms. Williams, in my 14 years with APS, this is one of the clearest cases of attempted financial exploitation of an elderly, vulnerable adult I've ever seen. And it nearly worked. She explained the next steps. Full investigation, interviews with hospital staff, the attorney's office, family members, forensic review of Dorothy's financial accounts, determination of substantiated abuse. Under Florida Statute 825.103, exploitation of an elderly person is a felony. If the value exceeds $50,000, it's a secondary felony. Your grandmother's condo is worth $685,000. That changes everything. October 25th, Dorothy was transferred out of ICU to the step-down unit. No longer needed critical care. November 2nd, she moved to Riverside Rehabilitation Center. Physical therapy 5 days a week, occupational therapy, building strength, learning to walk again after 3 weeks in a hospital bed. November 4th came and went. The original attorney appointment date. Dorothy was in rehab, not dead. She called Gerald Pute's office from the rehab facility. Mr. Pute, this is Dorothy Williams. I had an appointment scheduled for today. Obviously, I can't make it to your office.
Can you come to me?
November 10th. Gerald Pute came to Riverside Rehabilitation Center. 2 witnesses, Carolyn Vance, rehab social worker, and nurse practitioner, Ellen Torres. Dorothy signed the updated will in the activity room at 2:15 p.m. The beach condo, Unit 3B, $350 Ocean Boulevard, valued at $685,000, went to Frankency Williams. The savings account, $156,000, was split. Half to Frankency, half to the Jacksonville Senior Resource Center, a nonprofit serving vulnerable elderly adults. Jessica Williams Monroe received $1. Daniel and Patricia Williams, nothing. Gerald Pute notarized it, filed it, made it legal. Dorothy looked at me when it was done. Now, they can't take it. But there was one more twist. November 12th, Gerald Pute called me. Frankency, I need to tell you something. Jessica came to my office yesterday. My stomach dropped. What did she want? She tried to present a healthcare surrogate designation, said Dorothy signed it in August 2025 before the flood. Said it superseded your 2022 designation and made Jessica the surrogate instead. That's impossible. Grandma would have told me. The document was a forgery, a poor one. The notary seal was fake. We verified with the supposed notary, who has no record of it. The signature didn't match Dorothy's hand, and the witness listed is someone who doesn't exist. Jessica had tried to forge a surrogate document. What did you do? I documented it, reported it to the Florida Bar and local law enforcement. Attempted fraud. Forgery. She left before I could call the police, but we have security footage of her bringing in the document. One more charge. November 22nd. Adult Protective Services closed their investigation. Finding substantiated attempted financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult per Florida Statute 825.103. The case was referred to the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. December 3rd, police report filed. Case number JSO 20225-12-0891. A detective was assigned. Detective Raymond Porres, Financial Crimes Unit. December 5th through December 18th. Interviews. Dorothy gave her statement. I gave mine. Hospital staff. Gerald Pute. Diane Kowalski from the law office. The notary. Jessica tried to fake. December 10th. I got a call from MedSource Pharmaceuticals Human Resources. They wanted to inform me courtesy notification, since I was listed on the APS report as the reporting party, that Jessica Williams Monroe's employment had been terminated effective immediately. Professional misconduct involving vulnerable adults. Violation of company ethics policy. Jessica lost her job. December 18th. Dorothy was discharged from rehab. Not to her old house on Riverside Avenue. The flood had destroyed it. She sold the lot. Too many bad memories. She chose assisted living instead. Harborview Senior Residence. Bright apartment. Second floor. View of a garden. Activities. Staff on site 24/7. Social. Safe. She asked me to keep one thing from the old house. The side gate key, the one I'd used to get in during the flood. Storm-soaked, rusted now, still marked with mud. I had it framed. Next to it, I framed the surrogate designation. March 14th, 2022. The paper that saved her life. They hang on my living room wall. January 15th, 2026. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office forwarded the case to the State Attorney's Office, 4th Judicial Circuit. Recommended charges. Jessica Williams. Monroe, exploitation of an elderly person, secondary felony. FS 825.103. Forgery, third-degree felony. FS 830.1.01. Criminal use of personal identification, third-degree felony. FS 817.568. Patricia Williams conspiracy to exploit an elderly person, third-degree felony. As of late February 2026, the State Attorney's Office is reviewing the case for prosecution. No charges have been filed yet. The legal system moves slowly. I don't know if they'll face criminal charges. I don't know if there will be a trial, but Dorothy's safe. The condo is protected. The will is filed. That's what matters. Share this with anyone who's caring for aging parents or grandparents. Don't wait until the ICU to find out who really has the legal authority. February 15th, 2026. I did something I didn't plan on doing. I used part of Dorothy's gift, the condo, the savings to start something. The Francie Williams Surrogate Defense Fund, a nonprofit, small, local for now. We help elderly people in Northeast Florida get their legal documents in order, health care surrogate designations, living wills, powers of attorney, free legal consultations, notary services, witness coordination. We've helped 52 people so far. 52 families who won't face what we faced. Dorothy came to the ribbon cutting February 8th. She handed me something, a plaque, wood engraved. It reads, "Blood doesn't mean family. Showing up does. Proof matters more than promises." Dorothy Williams, 2026. She had it made at a local shop. Told them exactly what to write. It hangs at the fund's office now. First thing people see when they walk in. I think about that night sometimes. September 28th, 2025. 2:13 a.m. The choice my father made. My mother, my sister. What they valued more than Dorothy's life. I don't talk to them anymore. They've tried. Texts, emails, letters. One voicemail from Daniel. November 2025. Frankency, please. We made a mistake. We were scared of losing Jessica's respect. Can we just talk? I haven't replied. Because it wasn't a mistake. Mistakes are accidents. Errors in judgment made in a moment. This was a pattern. Choices plural. Over weeks, over years. Jessica called the attorney September 20th to confirm an appointment she claimed she didn't know about. My parents stayed at a resort while Dorothy drowned. Jessica lied to a hospital resident to change a code status. Patricia texted, Do it tonight. Jessica tried to forge a surrogate document. Those weren't mistakes. Those were decisions. And I made mine. I see Dorothy every Sunday now. We have lunch. Sometimes at Harborview, sometimes I take her out. Her favorite is the seafood place on Atlantic Boulevard. Sometimes we don't talk about any of it. She asks about my work, whether I'm dating anyone, how the fund is going. Sometimes she says, "You saved me twice. Once from the water, once from them." I tell her, "You saved me first. You taught me what showing up looks like." The beach condo is mine now legally. Dorothy transferred the title in December 2025. Wanted it done before anything else could happen. "No questions when I'm gone," she said. "It's yours. You earned it." I haven't moved in. I go sometimes sit on the balcony, third floor, ocean view, listen to the waves. I think about what I would have lost if I hadn't turned around that night. Not the condo, not the inheritance. Dorothy, the woman who raised me when my parents were too busy building Jessica's future. The woman who came to my school play when they went to Jessica's volleyball tournament. The woman who told me at 12 years old that being there mattered. The woman who trusted me enough to put my name on that paper in 2022. I still work ICU. Same unit, same hospital. I see families every day making impossible decisions about people they love. I see the ones who show up, and I see the ones who don't. I don't judge anymore. Not out loud. Everyone has their reasons, their complications, their histories. But I know this. When it mattered most, when the water was rising and Dorothy was trapped and scared and alone, I turned the car around. And that's the only thing that counts. My name is Frankency Williams. I'm 29 years old. I'm an ICU nurse in Jacksonville, Florida. And I learned something that night in the flood that I'll carry for the rest of my life. Family isn't who shares your blood. Family is who turns the car.